Board of Supervisors to order, please. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing. Following the Pledge of Allegiance will be a silent moment of reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll have the reading of the notice, please.
The educational meeting and budget hearing of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Monday, November 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m., and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. I would like to request everyone please silence your cell phones and any other electronic devices as to not be an interruption to the meeting, and thank you for your indulgence. And we'll move on to roll call. And again, please sign in to roll call. And thank you. I would like to welcome all of you that are visitors with us this evening. We have a full crowd, and thank you for your interest in county government. And we'll move on to public comment. No one had approached the clerk or myself for public comment, and so we'll move on to item B, budget hearing. We'll have an overview of the published budget by HR Finance and Property Committee Chair Robinson.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I'm going to defer to the administrator for a lot of the details relative to the specifics in the budget, but I'd like to just start out by thanking the administration, all the department heads for their work in preparing the budget for 2026. These are tough times when we've got a levy limit tied into net new construction at 1.61% and a lot of inflationary pressures and our desire to try to accomplish our priorities. But I'd like to just walk back through the process. On June 19th, we had the budget development orientation and kickoff meeting with the county board where we talked about some of the things that went into form in the budget. In July, we talked about fund balance policies, assumptions, and priorities for next year. And we put as our priorities employee compensation, make sure that we're a competitive workplace and can attract and retain people, that we protect our capital reserves, that health insurance, we wanted to maintain the quality of the insurance. New positions were limited, and operating expenses, we wanted to prioritize necessities and efficiencies. And I think that this budget goes a long way in doing that. Once the administrator presented the budget in September, throughout the summer and after the budget was originally presented to the county board, we've had discussions at all of the committee levels relative to mandatory versus discretionary programming, what level of fees are necessary. And, we've got this year's budget is $198 million. Next year's will be a little bit less than that, but the levy is $57 million, so the rest comes from other sources. We needed to make sure that we looked at those other sources to make sure that we're keeping pace with inflation, or we won't be able to sustain the programs. I'll turn it over to the administrator, and then I'll summarize where some of the changes that have been made throughout the process and perhaps our next steps. So, Administrator Leonard.
Thank you, Committee Chair Robinson, Chair Gibbs, members of the County Board. Thanks for the opportunity in speaking with Chair Robinson. Your agenda does have hyperlinks to the full budget message as well as the presentation of the budget, but in light of the fact that this is the time for public hearing, Chair Robinson asked that I give a truncated overview for the benefit of any public, kind of just as to some of the highlights of the budget. And I put together a couple of slides that I will share on the screen. So in terms of an overview for purposes of this public hearing, I want to start with some key budget takeaways. And in my conversations with any members of the public or people in passing when they ask me questions based on my job, the message I think that resonates throughout this year's budget and in past budgets really is that Marathon County continues to be a very well-managed fiscal organization. We're seen as a leader in the state, not only in terms of the quality of the programs that we provide, but also certainly in our region. We're also looked to and across the state in terms of a cost effectiveness of those services. Another message that I think comes through in the budget is that we have a very strong local economy. As Chair Robinson referenced, uncertainty is kind of a word of the day, and certainly there are a lot of concerns at all levels of government as it relates to budgeting and other matters. But locally, our net new construction value was 1.61%, and I'll talk about a little bit about that later. Not where we'd want it, but still strong relatively in the state. And why net new construction is important, that's new construction. Those are it's new tax base coming online. So 1.61% is a good thing. It's a measure of that net new construction activity in the state. For reference, that's 19th across the 72 counties. Another indicator of a strong local economy, I think, is our equalized value growth. 9% this year. It's a function of a number of things, but one on the positive side is that Marathon County is a place where individuals and businesses want to locate. That's certainly on the home value side. When you look at equalized value, that's a bit of a mixed bag because, again, it shows appreciation and value. It shows, again, that people want to live here. The challenge, of course, the flip side of that coin is one of affordability. But still an issue to monitor, but again, I think it, again, demonstrates that strong local economy. And then last, I think perhaps the strongest indicator of really the strength of not only Marathon County's economy, but also our region. When you look at within the budget book, it's on page 22, but I go through and talk about the unemployment rate within the state of Wisconsin and our region. Marathon County's 2024 unemployment rate was 2.7%, significantly below the state. State average is 3%. Our region is more competitive than the state as a whole. Those numbers sound close, but the difference between 2.7% and 3% is significant. It's 10%. And that resonates in a couple of ways, one of which how it influences our budget, as Chair Robinson referenced, certainly makes retention of employees, recruiting of employees a top priority, because again, without top talent, we're not able to deliver the services to the people of Marathon County. So strong local economy, I think, again, is that primary budget takeaway. Of course, what you see in the first page of the substantive budget message, the proposed budget ended up being a 17-cent reduction, which equates to about 4.63%, down to $3.50. Again, when you look at our region, speaks to our fiscal management. We are well below our surrounding counties and well below that average of our surrounding counties. We're also going to be, now this is the comparison to the 2025 statewide median rate, but 20 cents below that median rate. Why is that important? I think when you look at Marathon County, one of the challenges we have, you certainly know this well, we have a large county. And some of the things that counties are tasked with, one of the primary objectives we have, two of them that really can drive costs. Law enforcement, when you're tasked with providing safety and security for a large area, it takes a lot of people. Similarly, when you look at infrastructure and roads, Marathon County has a great deal of roads. So the fact that we're able to keep that budget in a very, I would say, competitive, we have a competitive advantage to our peers, speaks again to that longstanding fiscal management That again starts with the board. So when you look at some other areas of the budget, just building on my last comments, overall, our per capita spending, it's not only important at the budget as the committee chair Robinson referenced, we often look at levy, but the budget is more than levy. When you look at our per capita spending in the state of Wisconsin, we again are we have a competitive advantage in terms of efficiency, 14th lowest per capita overall spending in the state, according to Ford Analytics. When you look at property tax, drilling down more, you see that our per capita property tax levy is $414, 16th lowest in the state. Again, I just pulled right out of the budget message. When you look at our region, substantially better than our peers, I guess I'll say. When you look at the per capita spending, we're 5% below our next closest county in our region, 37% lower than the highest in our region. Per capita tax levy, similarly 10% lower than the next lowest surrounding county, and a 37% lower than that highest per capita tax levy county in our region. So what does that mean for homeowners? Again, if members of the public, when you're looking at the budget, I certainly appreciate that, we all want to know, well, what's in it for me? What does that look like for me? That reduced tax rate of 17 cents, that drop, coupled with the significant increase in equalized value, nets out to a 3.95% change in that tax bill, the county share of that tax bill for that average homeowner, that average home in Marathon County of just about $253,000. And to put that in perspective, I think we all know when we get our property tax bill, it's not just going to be $886.87. The county share of the tax bill remains relatively low compared to the other taxing jurisdictions. So personally, I just pulled some WASA numbers. I live in the city. The county share of the tax bill is about 18% of the overall tax bill. And for context, our levy, again, for a $100,000 home, $350, that's that rate of $3.50 per thousand. When you look at that over 100,000, $350. The equivalent, the levy for the city of Wausau is $650. So that county share of that tax bill still continues to be, again, I think competitive. We have a competitive advantage to many other counties in that regard. The total share, the county share of that tax bill, when you look at that, again, if we use the average homeowner with the $253,000 house, that breaks down to just under $74 a month. So if you think about the things that we all pay on a monthly basis that are in that neighborhood, again, I think it speaks to the fiscal management and direction from the Board of Supervisors, but also the substantial effort of staff to really carry out that direction. I wanted to take just one moment to talk about, I think it could be instructive to look at this in a 2-year perspective. We've done this a number of times since I've been in administration when there were circumstances that maybe lent itself well to looking at 2 years. You'll recall the board strategically made the decision as part of last year's budget, or I should say this year's budget adoption, to hold the overall levy flat. What that led to was actually a net decrease. I'll go back one slide. A net decrease of 0.19% for that average homeowner. So when you look at what accounts for the increase from the proposed budget or the budget that was published and the 2025 budget, a number of things drive that. One is operating levy, which, as Chair Robinson referenced, is really a function of any increase permitted by net new construction. Also, debt payments on previously issued bonds and notes, and then a slight increase in library support. So when you look at the last 2 years, and you look at the net new construction value, this year again was 1.61%. Last year was 1.78%. So with the board's strategic decision to hold the levy flat by buying down that rate, when you look at the increase over the 2-year span, more than half, 3.39%, is attributable to net new construction, which again, I think speaks to the strength of the local economy. And if you go back to that average homeowner impact, That means when you look at that percent change in tax bill from 25 to 26 of 3.95%, you take out the drop of 0.19 in 25, you're about 1.76% each of the last 2 years. Again, strong fiscal management. The county has done a very good job. Despite all the fiscal pressures over the last several years to really manage expense. So speaking of challenges in building the budget, Chair Robinson referenced a number of them, but the top priority issued by the board through the budget priority setting process was ensuring that we're able to retain and attract a quality workforce. That was your number one priority, was to implement that compensation plan. I will say that department heads, many of which are in the back, really took that to heart. We really strove to build a budget that was in keeping with the priorities set by the board. At every stage of this process, from that initial budget priorities, budget assumptions, each of the committee meetings that were referenced, we took that direction and really made it the priority for staff to carry out. And why is retaining and attracting a top talented workforce really important? I referenced this before. When you look at the local unemployment rate, there are only 8 counties in Wisconsin with a lower unemployment rate than Marathon County of the 72 counties. So we need to make sure that we're competitive. So staff worked very diligently to overcome that challenge, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Health insurance, likewise, a significant challenge. The national average was between 8 and 10% in terms of healthcare inflation. Ultimately, we came in at 6.5. Inflation has seemed to cool, which is certainly a welcome sign for us. But of course, net new construction, as alluded to by Chair Robinson, really doesn't cover all of the increases in cost to continue that county's experience on an annual basis. So with those challenges, what strategies were used by staff in bringing a budget to you that was ultimately accepted by the HR Finance and Property Committee and that you'll all consider next week? The primary strategy was departments really took a very close and aggressive approach to their budget to identify opportunities to reduce costs. I'm not going to go through all of them. I did that in the hour and 45-minute presentation to HR Finance with the budget. I just highlighted a couple here. We made some, working with the Sheriff's Office, striving to really look at overtime, took a different approach there. Social services, we made reductions to their out-of-home placement budget with that high-cost placement reserve that was put in place by the board as part of the 2025 budget. But one of the real tools we leaned in on, and I got to give credit to all the people in the back of the room, they did a fantastic job. We defunded 15, the equivalent to about 15 full-time equivalent positions throughout the county. I list them there, I won't go through that in detail, but across the board, when you look at our 26 departments or multi-county departments that are funded as a part of the budget, 17 of the 26 came in with a levy budget for 26 that was flat or down from their levy allocation in 2025. So they really did a fantastic job. I've used the moniker of shared sacrifice, and I know that might sound cliche, but it really was. We recognize, we have felt as staff the impact of starting to lagging behind the market in terms of compensation. So we took very seriously the direction from the board to make the implementation happen. Some other strategies, Chair Robinson referenced this already. Sound fiscal practice, no general fund reserve spending was used to propose the budget that is now in your hands. And there was no new debt that was issued. That's important because debt issuance is one of those areas that, again, is outside the operating levy. It can really have a substantial impact, on the overall levy. So staff worked diligently to make sure that we followed through on the direction of no general fund reserve spending, and of course, no new debt issuance. And I talked in each of the standing committee meetings and also with HR Finance on the opportunity that exists, and this is something that we'll work more on throughout the rest of the year and moving forward, the opportunity that exists for us to move forward with the highway shop relocation and construction. We'll present the proposal to the board. I think we can do that without issuing debt, which will be issuing any new debt, which would be a substantial achievement. Next on the list, sales tax revenue estimates. As our longstanding history has been to set conservative estimates, the board set in the budget assumption process a $16 million revenue assumption. The budget was presented with that assumption. HR Finance did make an amendment after I presented the budget, and HR Finance received it to up that a little bit. So we went from a budget that was a projection that was 11.27% below the forward analytics projections to about 8.5% below those projections. Again, that's, from my estimation, that's still sound fiscal management. You don't want to be in a position where you budget additional revenue that ultimately doesn't come through. I'll tackle the next two kind of in tandem, maximizing grant funding and fees for service refinement. We really, as staff, really looked at how can we align the services that we deliver and the staff costs that we have to deliver them to those revenue streams. So whether it's grant funding within the health department, or whether it was fees for services within any of our other departments, really trying to make sure that the cost to deliver our services, we are tying those things back to funding streams that are outside the levy. Because again, as Chair Robinson referenced, that levy is limited. Reductions in casual staffing. As part of this year's budget, the 2025 adoption, we centralized the funds for casual staffing, pulling them out of the vast majority of departments and centralizing those. This year, we significantly cut that budget. The budget is within county administration. We reduced it by in excess of $150,000. And then last, increased indirect or support costs for intergovernmental organizations that we support. This speaks, I guess, two things. One, in terms of efficiency, I think we've been well served. If you're familiar with the Innovation Fund, the state has put money aside to try to get local governments, villages, counties, cities, to work together and consolidate service delivery. Marathon County has done that for decades. Whether it's North Central Healthcare, the Aging Disability Resource Center of Central Wisconsin, City County IT, the airport, solid waste, Parks, Rec, and Forestry, we have done that for a number of years. The challenge is always making sure that we are doing as good a job as we can reasonably do to make sure that we're recouping the indirect support costs we have. Marathon County is oftentimes, actually in every one of those instances I just referenced, we're the largest partner in those partnerships. So we're tasked oftentimes with doing a lot of that support work, legal, HR, finance, making sure that we're recouping those costs and charging appropriately. That was, again, something we really focused on as part of this budget. And we'll get better as we continue in that regard. So what is the result of all of the work that I referenced? You do have a budget that delivered on all the priorities and assumptions set by the board. That budget provides for and allocates funding for the new board program priorities that you identified, including the Airport Minimum Revenue Guarantee Program, funding for emergency shelter as it relates to homelessness, as well as a position within the department, within the health department, a coordinator position. We reallocated funding that I referenced before in terms of defunding positions. It maintains service levels that our residents have come to expect and rely upon. And very importantly, it continues that longstanding commitment to strong fiscal management and long-term planning that has served Marathon County very, very well for decades. And I can't overstate this. I do think it provides us a competitive advantage relative to our local economy. The county tax rate is lower than a number of, well, all of our surrounding counties. We have local industry that makes this a desirable place for business and industry and individuals to locate. So I think the county budget that you all have before you, certainly you have a lot of work to do that I'm sure Chair Robinson will talk about. You have your budget adoption your budget adoption meeting next week. Staff are continuing to be available to assist you in any way we can, but it was a pleasure to develop this year's budget with the team in the back. And I couldn't be more proud of the budget that we presented to you. So with that, Mr. Chair, and Chair Robinson, I don't have anything else.
Turn it back over to Chair Robinson from the HR Finance Committee to talk about next steps and some of the amendments that the HR Finance Committee took up.
Thank you, Administrator Leonard. I think you can all see that there was a lot of work that went into the development of the budget. And I want to thank the committees and the individual members for their role in this too. I know at the ERC committee that they looked at the fees associated with the POUTS program and instituted an $8 a year change in that. We increased the dog license fees, which hadn't been increased since 2004, and we're significantly underfunding the program. I think the administrator talked about our commitment to address the issues of homelessness and left out the coordinator position and that will be created in the health department. And infrastructure, again, looked at the need to increase traffic at the airport and brought in an initiative. The Human Resources Finance Property Committee did amend the budget right after it was introduced prior to publication. We increased the expending within the capital expenditure program by $525,000 to include the jail chiller project. One of the concerns is that because we had used reserves last year for levy reduction, as well as made the commitment of funding the loan to Bug Tussle, we didn't have the capital or the fund balance necessary to support some of those activities. And as a result, we cut back on some of our capital expenditures, and in the desire not to create the backlog that we saw that resulted in the library roof failing and the ceiling of the jail, or the flooring at the jail sagging, we wanted to move ahead with some of the critical projects. So that was included in there, and we would encourage you to, if you do have thoughts and opportunities to change the budget, please let us know. The process is we have the hearing tonight. We will have the final vote on November 11th. The Finance Committee, Human Resources Finance and Property Committee will meet on the 10th to review amendments and make a recommendation. With or without a recommendation from that committee, amendments will be considered by the full board, but we ask if you have them in by Friday morning of this week so we can get them agendized and out to various parties. This is a tough budget. We do increase the levy. The overall budget is down from last year from $198,764,316 in 2005 to $194,723,686 this year. The levy is going up because we have inflationary pressures. The general fund has just under $1.5 million increase associated with it with the levy. Most of that, $1,233,000, is associated with the operation of the Sheriff's Department. They don't have the ability to increase fees. They are reliant upon the levy to support their operations for the patrol, dispatch, and most of the jail. And then debt service makes up the bulk of the remaining increase associated with, last year we had taken some reserves to reduce the levy support of the debt levy, but you can only use reserves once. And then you don't have those reserves. And with our fund balance policies that we adopted earlier this year, we don't have the capacity necessarily to do that going forward, and it's not good economic long-term planning to do so. So we have a tight budget, a responsible budget, one that delivers on our desire to continue to provide valued services to the citizens of this county, as well as looking for opportunities to be as efficient as we can be. So with that, Chair Gibbs.
Thank you. We will then now move on to item 9B, and we will start with the public hearing, and I'll have the clerk read the proposed 2026 budget.
Residents and taxpayers will take notice that the Marathon County Board of Supervisors has arranged for a public hearing on the 2026 tentative budget to be held in the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, Wausau, Wisconsin. An official public hearing is scheduled for Monday, November 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. with final approval on Tuesday, November 11, 2025 at 6 p.m. The public hearing will be for the benefit of Marathon County taxpayers who desire to be heard. The following is a summary of the tentative 2026 budget. Public inspection of the detailed report may take place at the office of the county clerk. Proposed for 2026, tax levy is $61,425,481. Mill rate is $3.50. Equalized value is $17,547,049,400.
Thank you. And with that, I'll open the public hearing and invite any of the public that wishes to address the county board on the proposed budget. Anybody wish to address the board on the proposed 2026 budget? Well, it looks like we have none. I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody that wishes to address the board on the 2026 proposed budget? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on the proposed budget. And if there's no objection, before we move into discussion by board members regarding the proposed 2026 budget, we do have with us Ben Rowan from the Historical Society, and he does have a prior commitment, so unless there's an objection, I'd like to have him come up and present on item E16C2. Is there any objection by the board? If not, could we have Ben, please, if you would, come on up and give us an overview of the information on the Historical Society and the request for funding for the anniversary of America's history of 250 years.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Ben Rowan, and I am presenting on behalf of the Marathon County Historical Society today. I want to begin by acknowledging the critical role that this budget plays in meeting the needs of our community, especially when it comes to vital programs like SNAP services, housing, and family support. We understand that these priorities come first, and we deeply respect the difficult choices that our county must make to balance its funding commitments. Our request is tied to the upcoming national commemoration of America's 250th anniversary in 2026. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to honor our shared history. This project is designed to represent all corners of Marathon County, from urban areas to rural towns and townships. It's not just about looking back, it is about connecting our diverse stories, building pride and belonging, and encouraging civic reflection, and creating a shared sense of future. The funding we're requesting will help us launch a balanced and accessible celebration through a number of key initiatives. The first of which is a roving historian video series, which will spotlight 5 local communities in Marathon County, traveling school presentations and behind-the-scenes museum experiences, a community-wide event with local vendors, music, and a time capsule ceremony, commissioned murals by local artists to commemorate the milestone, and a traveling exhibit to Marathon County's, about Marathon County's last 50 years that will rotate through towns, libraries, and municipal centers as well. To fund this, the Historical Society is requesting $20,000 from the county. This will be matched and multiplied through private sponsorships and grants. The return on investment goes beyond participation in tourism. It strengthens the community pride, engagement, and it creates a lasting legacy. Since submitting this request, we are aware of new pressures to the county resources. We want to make it clear that we are thankful for any level of support, If full funding is not possible, we are prepared to adjust the project scope while maintaining our core mission. No matter the amount awarded, we will remain grateful and collaborative partners in preserving and sharing Marathon County's history. The celebration is more than just that. It is a reflection on who we are as a county and how far we've come together. And supporting America's 250th gives Marathon County a chance to be part of the national movement of unity while also highlighting the strength and diversity of our own communities. Thank you again for your time and your consideration and your ongoing support of history, culture, and community identity.
So with that, I will note that this is for discussion today, but the HR Finance Committee did take this item up and moved it forward to the full board for its consideration as a budget amendment for 2025 to fund out of the contingency fund. And so I open it up for discussion. Any questions? All right. Any questions? Any discussion? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. We will now move back to discussion by board members regarding the 2026 budget. I open it up for discussion by board members. Any discussion? Supervisor Wilhelm, please.
Is the debt levy service is that going to be for North Central Healthcare?
Talk to the administrator.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The current plan for the debt levy is that North Central is servicing here, I can actually pull it up. Hold on just a second. On page 16 of your budget is a summary. And on the next page are actually all the individual debt schedules from the previous debt issuances. But for 2026, the total amount that Marathon County is servicing in debt is it's the column on the right, $7,714,894. North Central is servicing $3 million of that, so that is not going on the debt levy. The remaining portion, this part that's highlighted, that is what the debt levy portion relates to. As I presented to I alluded to each of the standing committees, and there'll be more presentations to come. Again, this is debt that was already issued. And as you start to think about if there is a desire to move forward with the highway shop relocation, there's an opportunity to take that $3 million from North Central, and it goes up, you'll see, in successive years, take that and actually use that as a financing tool to alleviate the need to borrow additional funds, because you've already incurred all of the costs that are attendant to issuing debt. Bond counsel costs, the interest is already accruing on those funds. So if you fund that highway shop using that already, put that $3 million and the other dollars in future years onto debt levy, you don't have to borrow again. But to answer your specific question in 2026, no. The short answer is that the debt that North Central is servicing, they're servicing with operational revenues.
But also remember that NCHC, when the county authorized that debt and allowed NCHC to do the remodel down there, they came up with a repayment schedule that's going to repay that debt over a longer period of time than the debt is actually issued. If you notice in the column in 2043, they continue to pay back the county for debt that is being paid by the county today. Okay, Supervisor Sandalski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had two questions to clarify. One was in relation to there was so under the deputy administrator, there was two different places for the, two different FTEs, one under the administrator and then one under the facility and capital management. Could you clarify that? And I had one more question after that too.
Sure. So that was a result of the reorganization that the board approved earlier this year. We historically had a facilities and capital management director position, and we were recruiting for that based on an evaluation we made during the course of that recruitment. We essentially abolished the facilities and capital management director position, created a deputy administrator of public works and capital projects, which will do the work also of the facilities and capital management director, but will oversee what I like to refer to as the public works departments. So highway, facilities and capital management, parks, rec and forestry, and solid waste. So it wasn't a net increase in overall FTE, but it was a reorganization.
So basically, we have just one deputy administrator then, or two?
Depends on how you want to count. You have the deputy administrator of public works and capital projects, which again was the result of that reorganization, the abolishment of the facilities and capital management director. And now they oversee, Chris is that person sitting in the back. He oversees and is going to manage directly those departments that I referenced. And then I also have Candace, who's sitting right to his right, who is the deputy administrator. And we have right now, her title, I think, is deputy administrator of special projects and other duties as assigned. So essentially not a change in overall FTE.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. I just had one other question too. So I was looking through the budget and I found like you had all the listed for the annual salary increases on the percentage for the county employees. And I was just wondering what was for the 2026 budget, what was the increase? Thank you.
Sure. So overall, if you look at pure increase in the wage budget from 2025 to 26, it is about 5.55% is what we were able to calculate. It is different because we're implementing the wage study, and I'll pull that up for you just to show. In the budget document itself, unlike in recent years where the board would appropriate 3%, let's say, 3% to individual departments through our pay for performance system. What that meant was each department got a 3% of their overall payroll to then apportion out following performance appraisals to individual staff. With the implementation of the wage study, the whole idea behind that is you take a fresh look at all of the positions that we operate in the county, and the short answer is some departments have and some positions have a much different impact than just a straight, hey, here you're allocated 3% and departments get to use that 3%. I'll use, here, I'll pick on one right here. For example, we had economic support specialist in social services. You'll see this highlighted. This is on page 187 of the overall budget. That position previously was in category H. It was reclassified based on the advice of and recommendation of the consultant that did the wage study to I. So you'll see if you started with the county earlier this year, the starting rate for that position was $20.12. As part of the implementation of the wage study, that got reclassified to I, which means the starting rate now is $24.13. So that's a significant increase in terms of percentage. Similarly, you'll see in the sheriff's office, we had positions on 911 communications dispatcher. That's someone who answers 911 and dispatch, right? So that was in pay grade J. As a result of the analysis, it got moved to K. So you'll see that the starting rate for that position went from $23.04 to $27.61. That shows you, it kind of verifies the challenges that departments were having with positions. When you're lagging behind the market, it's very difficult to recruit for dispatchers or corrections officers. You'll see they were in the same class, corrections officer. That is, you work in the jail. That was previously in J, it got moved to K. So certain departments, the division of the communications division in the sheriff's office, the average was over 13%. My department, 4. So across the whole county, it averaged out to that 5.55% when you compare pure 2025 all-in wage cost to 26, but it is very specific on department because it's very much tied to whether or not there were reclasses.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Other discussion? All right, seeing none, we will proceed. Item D, discussion and presentation of reports, standing committee chairpersons or designees. Any Supervisor Robinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to bring to the board's attention the discussion that we had at the last Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee relative to the Innovation Grant. The Innovation Grant is available through the state of Wisconsin to encourage efficiencies within government through consolidation of services. And I would ask the members if they have a chance to go back and look at the presentation at the committee meeting and bring forth ideas on how we can potentially consolidate or merge or work with other units of government in providing services at a more cost-effective manner.
Okay, any other committee chairs or designees? All right, we will move on to education and discussion regarding agenda items to be taken up on the Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. Appointment, Transportation Coordinating Committee, item E, 14A.
Appointing Ron Shuk to serve on the Transportation Coordinating Committee to complete an unexpired term that will expire at the Organizational County Board meeting in April 2026, replacing Aaron Hersey.
Any discussion on that appointment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item E, 15, ordinances. Item E, 15A, Town of McMillan rezone. Tim Vreeland on for Tim Grossbier, ordinance 50-25. Any questions? All right, moving on to item E, 15B, Town of Reed rezone. Tim Vreeland for Paul Butchkowski, ordinance 0-51-25. Okay, moving on to the Town of Spencer rezone. David Kilty for Pam Kilty, ordinance 0-52-25. Item E, 15C. Any questions? Moving on to resolutions under E, 16. Under E, 16A, Executive Committee and Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, setting the county board salaries for the 26th through 2028 term, resolution 75-25. Discussion. Supervisor Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. This item is before us because we have to take action before December 1st relative to the salaries for the next term of the county board. The The ordinance calls for a 3% increase unless the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee changes it. We did not change it, so the item is before you, consistent with the rules of the board. We did not look at the stipends or reimbursement accounts. That may be a separate discussion in the future, but this calls for a 3% increase.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? All right. Moving on to item 15, E, 16D, Health and Human Services Committee, the Transportation Coordinating Committee. Under D, 16B1, the 2026 Elderly and Disabled Transportation 81.21 Application, Resolution 76-25. Any discussion? All right, moving on to item E, 16C, Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee. Under item E, 16C1, amend the 2025 budget to provide $5,000 to Synergy for review of potential economic development sites. And we have with us the Angel Laidlaw to be able to give us a presentation on that request. Angel, please.
As Angel's on her way up here, this was presented both to the Extension Education Economic Development Committee, which recommended funding, and then HR Finance and Property considered a funding source and recommended, as Chair Gibbs previously referenced with the Historical Society, they recommended funding it out of the 2025 budget contingency line. So with that, take it away, Angel. There you are. Your stuff is on.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of items. For those who don't know who Synergy is, we are the regional economic development organization serving the 5 counties in central Wisconsin: Lincoln, Marathon, Portage, Wood, and Adams. We serve as the engine for regional growth and economic development through collaborations and partnerships, which is why I'm here today. Our pillars of focus are talent growth, regional advocacy, business development, and partner engagement. Synergy is looking to conduct a targeted industry readiness evaluation for the 5 counties. Currently, right now, as we do attraction efforts to attract business, we don't have a direction on what that could look like for our region, and even so much so down to county and even those municipal levels. The initiative is a strategic way to collect data-driven efforts to identify the industries that we can, Marathon County and the region can best position to attract based on our workforce availability, infrastructure capacity, and then also what's competitive and what's happening in the nation for trends. By having this evaluation done and focusing on these key industries, we'll be able to work as a region together. It's difficult sometimes for us to compete against a Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago, but when we leverage ourselves as a 5-county region, we have a larger population, larger investment opportunities, and then we can partner together, which is at the core of what Synergy does. With the targeted industry study, there's a few different phases we will have. We'll have alignment with stakeholders. We'll look at data gathering. Site selectors will actually come to central Wisconsin and tour properties. They'll actually do presentations for all of our stakeholders as well. They'll move into a competitive analysis where they'll look at sites, our workforce, cost to live here in central Wisconsin, what's competitive. And then they'll also look at an industry fit analysis to say what are the most attractive industries that would want to come here to central Wisconsin. We, as Lance has mentioned, of course, we have great quality of life here, so we know when we can get them here, they're likely to want to, not only from a business aspect, but talent to stay here. But data and numbers don't lie. Many of our sites are currently not competitive when we're doing state requests. So one of Synergy's roles is that we fill out requests for information for our region, and we send that to the state. Individual communities fill out this information to say what properties they have that can align with that new request. Unfortunately, we're not even in the top 5 for many of these considerations because we are looking at infrastructure, utilities, because it's such a planned out. So having an idea of what we can attract specific for industries, and then having an expert say this is what we can attract and this would be a great fit for your company will allow us to leverage our marketing dollars to be more exact. Right now, I travel outside the state of Wisconsin to do business attraction efforts, but it's a blanket approach. So I'm not attracting, I could say manufacturing, we know we're all great in central Wisconsin at that, or food and beverage processing. But unfortunately, we don't know, should we be attracting an airplane part manufacturer, for example, maybe a different potato processor. So this would really help us leverage. The whole study is roughly, with travel for site selectors coming to Wisconsin, it's about $130,000. We're asking our municipal partners to help with about $5,000 each with that, so the counties and some of our larger communities. And then we are asking for private sector investment. We did have a soft agreement with WEDC for a capacity building grant for about $50,000. And then Synergy, of course, will be putting in about $10,000 to support the initiative. I will pause there because I covered kind of in general what the study is and the cost and what we're looking for, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'd open it up to questions, and Supervisor Zhang. Supervisor Zhang, you might be on mute. Supervisor Zhang, I still can't hear you. We'll come back to you if we've got any other questions. Any other questions for Angel? Supervisor Zhang, are you there now? Still cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can just barely hear you now.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying a new mic. I have a new headset, so it might not work very well here. But can you hear me now?
We can just barely hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Angel, just a quick question for you. How is this study going to be any different than the Greater Wausau's Prosperity Economic Strategic Plan that they developed several years back?
Sure, I'm happy. That one talks about more of a well-rounded approach, talking about just what should happen from an economic standpoint. This actually is specific to industry. So it'll tell us which industries we should be attracting directly, which the other studies around the region have not done that. It also breaks down our workforce concentration. So not only are we going to say we should attract this kind of business, but this is the workforce we have available and skilled workforce for it. And then also what's very different from any other study conducted in our region is we will actually have 5 to 6 properties that do a pass or fail grade with site selectors that are here and tell them what they need to do to make this a pass grade and desirable for site selectors. So the larger Wausau one was talking about maybe the vision and where we can go as a group and a region. But however, this is more specific into the business attraction efforts and diving down into what we have here from a data standpoint.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a follow-up?
Please go ahead.
So, Angel, is the goal to have this plan also have some synergy with the strategic plan that was developed by the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership as well?
Yes, we've actually met with GWPP on the study, and then also the Chamber of Commerce here, and we're meeting with all the Chamber of Commerce within our region as well too, to make sure that these align. And the one thing I did not mention is this study, once complete, will be open to the public. So that way, not only are the investors who invest to get the study done, but our smaller communities that maybe do have property that could be developed could start doing their own activities locally, because we know studies like this are very expensive and it's really hard for small communities to actually participate. So we want to make sure this aligns with all the other goals we have. And then to add on to part of this, part of the study also includes engaging stakeholders like GWPP and those that are working directly in development.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Angel? All right, Angel, thank you so very much. Moving on to announcements and/or requests. The clerk has an announcement.
If you checked your mailboxes, you found your candidate paperwork packet in your mailbox for the 2026 to 2028 term. If you are not going to run for reelection, I would greatly appreciate getting those packets back so that I can use them or recycle them rather than just waste that paper. I did set out several copies of the Declaration of Non-Candidacy on the table right inside the door. If you'd like to swap out your packet for one of those, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I'm happy to put one in your mailbox if you'd like to shoot me an email. But please note all the pertinent dates on the front of those just to make sure that you get everything done in time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Any other announcements? I'd just like to make one announcement. This is the start of Operation Greenlight that this board approved as a resolution last month. Operation Greenlight is in recognition and recognizing our veterans and shining the spotlight on the veterans and the services that they have provided to this country, and also the opportunity to thank them for all of that they have provided. So with that, I would like to ask anybody that is a veteran here with us, please stand up and be recognized. And again, thank you for your service. Any other announcements and/or requests? All right, we're down to item number 18. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Marash and seconded by Supervisor Kroll to adjourn. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.